Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Old Games. Today we are making a short guide to Western Roman Empire in Rome Total War Barbarian Invasion, either the original or the remastered one. And as you can clearly see, the Western Roman Empire is the largest empire in the whole game. So they clearly have some things going for them. Also, they are quite strong military might. You can see there are quite a lot of decent quality troops comitatenses, some Sarmatian auxilia, and so on in their settlements. And there are some quite well defensible areas, for example Spain, which is pretty difficult for the enemy to get into. The Berbers might try, but at least in the early game they cannot get proper muscle behind their attack there. And of course the Western Roman roster is really decent, so you might want to check the video about tier list for that roster. And I have to say that I have underestimated the Carriage Ballistas somewhat. They are quite a bit better than I have estimated in that video, and I have another video coming from them at some point. So, to give them the honor they deserve. So, we have some things going for us, and of course another thing is that we are allied with the Eastern Roman Empire, which is by far the second largest empire in the game, and probably the richest, or has the most trade going for them and so on. So, some good things going for Western Roman Empire, but there are quite a lot of things going against them. And let's begin with religion. So, for example, in Syracuse there is paganism, in Carthage Christianity, in Rome Christianity, in Ravenna paganism, in Mediolanum paganism, in Samara Priva paganism, in Avaricum as well, and in Arles, Massilia, Burdigala and so on. In Carthage there is Christianity, and in Spain there seems to be quite a lot of paganism, but then so paganism is practically the dominant religion here, but not the only religion. So some cities are pretty much Christian, and there are some Christian minorities in cities that are pagan. So you are going to have quite a lot of religious unrest in your areas in the early game at the very least. So you have practically two options to pursue. The first one is that you try to force the whole empire into one religion, which will cause some difficulties in the early game, but it will make things easier in the longer run, because then the areas are supporting each other in terms of religion. And of course you may have some difficulties trying to force your religion to the areas you are going to conquer, but at least I have found one religion approach good for my gameplay. And if you want to keep one religion, you need to manage your characters so that Christian characters, if you pursue paganism, you will send Christian characters to fight on the fronts and try to get the pagan family members be as governors. Or if the situation is vice versa, then you try to keep your Christian family members in your cities and send the pagans to fight the battles. And of course some diplomats and spies also have religious trait. The financial situation is not so good, so you are making losses even initially. And since it's unlikely that you are going to be able to keep your whole empire together without rebellions, I think your financial situation will deteriorate even further from this situation. So it's not uncommon for me to have negative income of 10,000 denarii, or maybe even over that. So the finances are really a problem for you. And to tackle the thing, you might want to let the cities revolt and then recapture them. You might get some decent loot from them if you exterminate the population. Well, that doesn't sound kind of benevolent ruler tactic to let your cities rebel so you can plunder and raise them to raise money for yourself, but in this barbarian invasion, I think it's very viable strategy. So you need to get money, and basically you don't have much to invest at the moment, at least after the first turn. So you might want to dismantle some of your buildings to get some money for you. Unfortunately, the money you are going to get is quite a bit less than you got to use for constructing them. So yeah, so you are going to be poor for quite a while. So if you want to get rich, you need to start invading areas, and most of all Eastern Roman Empire areas. These here are some juicy targets that give you a 5-digit amount of loot as denaries. And of course this Eastern Mediterranean as well. So to solve your monetary issues, you need to start capturing these Eastern Roman larger cities. And of course, if you allow your own larger cities to rebel and recapture them, you are going to get quite a lot of loot. And if you are going to allow them to rebel, for example, Avaricum, in Avaricum the public order is in 5%, so it's pretty much unlikely that you can do anything to prevent this city from rebelling at some point. So you are going to have rebellions, and when you see that they are about to happen, you need to dismantle all military buildings in the city, especially the troop training facilities. And that's because it affects what kind of garrison the rebelled city gets after its rebellion. So now here, Avaricum, since there are no troop training facilities, the garrison, rebel garrison here is going to be peasants, mostly. There might be some mercenaries and a general, but overall it's going to be peasants. And it makes recapturing the city quite a lot of easier. If there were proper barracks, for instance, you might end up fighting against a significant number of comitatenses and limitanei in order to recapture it. And actually that army might march out and capture one of your cities if it's poorly defended. So to make your life easier, dismantle the military buildings in a city that's about to rebel. And of course you are going to need those military facilities in some cities, so for example in Rome, I don't recommend dismantling them, even though you get a lot of money, since Rome is most likely to stay under your control the whole game, and you are going to need those good quality military units produced at some point, or at some places. And another thing going against you, even in the early game, is that public order. As you can see, there are almost in every city the people are unhappy. That 40% public order is actually quite decent in Samara Priva. In Londinium there are actually decently happy guys. But here once again, the public order is in red. You can control it somewhat, but as the city starts to grow even bigger, as it's already growing, and you would need to build that proconsul's palace, the public order is going down, and in Spain as well the situation is quite poor. All of these cities are initially in low public order. Lowering taxes helps somewhat, training peasants helps somewhat, but can you afford those for a long term? So I think, in my opinion, the best way to increase public order is to allow the cities to rebel and then recapture them, because exterminating the populace gives such a huge boost to the public order, and that helps you going in the game for quite a long time, at least into the mid game. And for the late game you are going to need to have the religion issue settled, and you are going to need to have the public order buildings built in enough quantity and have large enough garrisons to keep the population in check. And back to the religion, by the way, another approach there is to accept that you are going to have multiple religions and you try to juggle those. The problem is that a province affects its neighboring provinces in terms of religion. So, for example, Rome spreads Christianity to Ravenna, and Ravenna spreads paganism to Rome, and thus they both create public disorder in each other. So harmonizing has some benefits, or at least regional harmonizing. For example, that in Italy you would have Christianity, and here in Gallic areas you would have paganism and so on. So that would make things a bit easier, but it's another thing to juggle if you decide to pursue that option. So public order and religion are quite strongly linked in this game. Okay, so these are your early game challenges, and that's actually not all of them. So, as you can see, you are surrounded practically by enemies from most of the sides. And your alliance with the Eastern Roman Empire is not that great at all. They will backstab you at the first opportunity. And so you are going to be surrounded by enemies. And in my opinion, the best course of action is to try to secure some of the corners of the map. For example, wiping out the Celts, even though keeping these cities under control with low public order is difficult, but wiping the Celts out would secure this northwestern area of the empire. You won't then be needing standing armies here, since you're struggling with finances. You can move their armies to other fronts where they can fight more effectively. And one thing going for attacking the Celts is that they are not a horde faction. So if you wipe them out in these cities, they won't come back as a horde. And of course in Britain you need to retain good enough public order, especially in Eburacum and Londinium, so that the Romano-British faction won't emerge, because then it will start waging war against you, and once again you need to tie up rather large amount of forces to beat them. Another faction you should engage early on is the Berbers, since they are quite weak. Their roster is absolute trash, and they have only 2 cities. So if you manage to wipe them out, your southwestern flank will be secured, and taking down both of these Celts and Berbers will relieve the pressure in the western fronts, so much that you can put almost all of your fighting forces to the eastern front. Of course, you need to deal with the rebellious settlements at some point, but taking out these 2 factions will relieve the pressure quite a bit. Then the next steps, for at least for my campaign, is to take out Alemanni and Saxons. You might be able to capture this settlement, rebel settlement, that's quite nice, but eventually you are going to end up at war with sections as well. And why they are good targets is that they don't spawn hordes when their last settlement is taken. So you can get some decent settlements. This is actually quite well developed at the point when you are going to capture it. So you can start training troops from this settlement as well. This is not such a good settlement, but decent nonetheless, so, and gives you some money, so you should capture it as well. And of course here, these are rich settlements, these Eastern Roman Empire settlements, so when you feel that you have enough troops in the Eastern Front, you might as well start pushing forwards. And that's about the early game. And then we come to mid or late game, and that is dealing with hordes. And actually these Vandals, at least in my gameplays, along with Goths, come quite early into your region. So currently the Goths are settled, but they are pushed away quite fast by Vandals or Huns or Sarmatians, which in turn are pushed away by Vandals or Huns. So you are going to have hordes quite fast in your areas. And to dealing with them, you need to have proper defenses in Salona and in Aquincum. At least in my campaign playthroughs, most of the horde armies will attack these two settlements. So having decent enough stone walls, I prefer large stone walls or epic stone walls, but these basic stone walls are decent as well, is essential for defensive battles. And for those battles you need to form your troops in the city center, let the enemy waste their strength against your walls and towers, and then with if you have some enough troops, you can drive them away from the city center. And even if you cannot, they will take huge casualties most likely when trying to take these cities. And then when they start pushing towards Italy, one decent field army most likely will be able to deal with the remnants. But if things go smoothly, you can take care of the hordes, or at least break their strength with defensive battles in these two settlements. And you are going to need to deal with the hordes for quite a while, since there are quite a few of those horde factions. The Huns, Vandals, Sarmatians, Goths, Roxolani, Burgundy, Lombardy, and Franks. So they will turn into horde mode whenever they lose their last settlement. So because of that, you don't want to invade Vicus Franki too soon. You can prevent the horde from forming by assassinating all of the family members of the faction, or if you are capturing their last settlement that has the last family members in them, you need to take out the family members and then lose the battle. So when the last family member goes down, the city will become a rebel settlement, and after that you can capture it without causing a new horde to emerge. Even in the mid and late game, you are going to be struggling with public order as Western Roman Empire, and you are going to need to have those buildings that improve public order, and you are going to need to have strong garrisons in settlements to improve public order. And of course, strong garrisons take quite a lot of money, so basically it's going to mean limitane or peasants. Peasants are the cheaper options, but limitane will overall provide a bit more of public order. But the question is whether you can afford those, because they are quite a lot of more expensive than peasants. So, Western Roman Empire is kind of the pinnacle of playing Barbarian Invasion, at least in my opinion. It's the most interesting faction to play, mostly because it's so difficult and there are so many different things going against it in the game. But then again, beating the game with Western Roman Empire is quite rewarding. So, this is my short guide to Western Roman Empire. What do you think? Did I miss some issues? Do you disagree with something? Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comment field below. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, so you will be notified whenever a new video is released. Have a great rest of the day. Quality Old Games out.